More new indie game trailers have dropped, so here are the ones of interest to me, including pixel art titles, a number of games on Kickstarter, sequels, spiritual successors, and more. So let's begin with Bounty Brawl Most Wanted, a co-op multiplayer action roguelite with a twist, where up to 5 players team up to take on dangerous bounties, hunting down the galaxy's most wanted, blasting their way through rooms of enemies with randomized elements, using their character-specific special abilities, and then taking on the powerful boss at the end. However, after defeating said boss, it becomes a free-for-all bounty brawl where players fight each other for the top prize. Players also have a lasso which can be used to immobilize enemies, but can also be used on other players with a great art style as well. Here's a release that I was not expecting, since the Heroes of Might and Magic-like Songs of Conquest is one of my favourite games of 2024, steadily chugging along on PC. Then out of nowhere, the mobile version of all things dropped, so it is now available on iOS and Android. I suppose a touch screen interface makes sense in place of a mouse, as compared to having to map the controls onto a controller, but it's cool that modern tablets can support a game like this, since it just looks and plays great. But do beware of all your free time being consumed by this release. This video is brought to you by Haunted Lands, an absolutely sick looking 2D action platformer whose visual style is inspired by the DOS era of games from the late 80s to early 90s, an era which I grew up with, of games like Biomenace, as well as its primary inspiration Dangerous Dave, who have just launched a playtest on Steam, so you get to try it out today. This is an action platformer where you go into perilous burial grounds filled with all sorts of evil spirits, nightmarish creatures, and monstrous abominations. It's run and gun action at its finest, but with a modern twist, since you are able to acquire and add powerful artifacts to the vault, which can then be equipped on individual characters before beginning your expedition, with some of these having literal game-changing power that completely changes how a character plays. Speaking of which, there are also 5 characters to choose from, including Werewolf, Salamander, Veteran, Sorceress, and Ranger, each of which are wholly unique and have their own abilities which provide variety. So as a 90s kid, I'm very excited for this, and once again, the playtest is available right now, so try it and wishlist the game on Steam. A new pixel art action-adventure RPG is Willow Guard, mixing dungeon crawling action with interactive fiction elements, where you play as a badger who is a member of the Willow Guard tasked with investigating a series of monstrous attacks plaguing a remote village near the northern hinterlands. On the surface, this looks similar to titles like Hyper Light Drifter in terms of gameplay, with interesting hack-and-slash combat, but the twist here is that you have a deck of cards which serve as your abilities, even if you are not exactly playing cards like in a deck builder. This is part of their non-traditional leveling system, where you don't get XP from killing enemies, but rather improve the character by getting better gear and gaining new ability cards, which themselves come from a crafting and upgrading system based on resources gathered from enemies in dungeons or purchased from a mysterious merchant. The narrative and story plays out through talking to the villagers, with a clue and item gathering system to progress the story, being a little bit more adventure game or visual novel in nature, with differing choices, but at its core remains an action title and will be releasing in April, so look out for that. The developer of this game shared it with me on social media, so I wanted to give Dice with Death a shout out, a dice building roguelike all about luck, strategy, and resource management. You have, unfortunately, already died at the beginning of the game, but then find yourself playing a game with death itself, rolling dice with a push your luck element as you attempt to cheat death itself, and perhaps to make your way back to the land of the living. You are rolling to deal damage, and can get a variety of game-changing relics to become overpowered in that Bellatrix kind of way, having sick pixel art as well, and is of interest. We did also get a new trailer for this whimsical and vibrant 3D platformer named Billie Bust-Up, whose most unique aspect is that this is pretty much a playable musical, with the backing songs matching the gameplay and level design, looking like quite the prospect. Our heroine, Billie, is on a quest to uncover her father's legacy and to reclaim a powerful magic making her way through the world and taking on villains in the process. The action is in tune to the music, so enemies attack and hazards like lasers fire off to the music, being a different kind of rhythm game so to speak, even if it does control like a 3D platformer. We have a couple of Kickstarter titles of interest, one of which is Devil's Drizzle, a 2D pixel art platformer about a frog suit wearing kid in pursuit of their missing friend, a cat umbrella, which has been blown away by a storm caused by the demonic Pazuzu. This is your classic precision platformer where you will face many platforms and hazards like fireballs and spikes, so you have to time your jumps, dashes, and even attacks on enemies in order to make your way through. Most of the pixel art here is relatively simple looking, with more work obviously going into elements like the bosses which look impressive, where this has a relatively modest goal on Kickstarter, so definitely chip in if you want to. We did also get a look at Lies of P Overture, the DLC expansion to what has been touted as the best non-FromSoft Souls-like title, drawing upon the story of Pinocchio but twisting it in their own way. Interestingly, the DLC is a prequel set in the final days of the decaying city of Krat, which was on the brink of the Puppet Frenzy massacre. Interestingly, you appear to be playing as the same character from the main game who stumbles upon an artifact that allows the puppet to travel back in time, now having to explore the city, uncover hidden backstories, and of course, to face off against enemies and bosses in epic battles. Apparently, the choices you make will ripple through the past and the present in the world, so I wonder how that affects the canon ending of the game, with the combat looking to be more of that intense stamina-based combat that people absolutely love, and in a similar manner, the visuals are on point as well, so Souls-like fans, if you have not already played the base game, what are you waiting for? Alright, this is actually an older title, but the developer did give me access, so I wanted to give Obenseuer a mention. At least that's how I think it's pronounced, being a first-person urban survival RPG where you play as a property manager of a rundown, unfinished building in an isolated quarantine district, chugging along in early access since December 2018, but has been getting steady updates and looks to be of interest to fans of the genre. One of the biggest projects currently on Kickstarter is Windstorm: The Legend of Khiimori, a game set in 13th century Mongolia, which you don't see every day, where you play as a young and determined courier rider. In this action-adventure game, you are tasked with delivering crucial messages and items across Mongolia, which is, of course, filled with dangerous terrain and fierce enemies. The relationship between the rider and horse is critical, where you must train, care for, and form a deep connection with the horses in the game to enhance their ability and speed. Horses each have unique traits and can be bred and trained to improve performance. Archery is the core of the combat here, along with hunting, solving riddles, taking on quests, building your reputation and more, looking kind of Witcher-like in spots, so it's no wonder that they managed to raise more than $300,000 and counting. There's something oddly satisfying to cleaning things, which the developer of Powerwash Simulator have absolutely nailed, being one of the biggest things going, with all kinds of crossover DLC from SpongeBob to Final Fantasy VII, Warhammer 40k to Shrek, but that game is from 2022, so they are putting a fresh new coat of paint on it with Powerwash Simulator 2 that does look very pretty. A title currently on Kickstarter with some cool throwback visuals is Automaton Heart, a 3D action-adventure RPG with third-person shooting elements that most interestingly has a detailed organ management system allowing you to strategically control and enhance your character's internal functions, which is one of the weirdest lines that I had to say, where this adds depth to the gameplay, requiring thoughtful decision making to optimize performance and survival. It is set in a weird, esoteric world filled with dungeons and expensive overworld areas to explore as you attempt to find out more about your creator, learn about your own origins, and to stabilize the chaotic environment. There are ancient ruins to explore, colossal structures built by synthetic beings known as the Constructs, and just looks so cool, but does have third-person shooting action with XP, leveling, equipment, upgrades, and more. Sure, it might not be the prettiest, but at least it doesn't make you want to gouge your eyes out, making it a cool, weird thing of interest, so if curious, check out their Kickstarter page for more information. A very adorable looking point-and-click adventure game is Broken Shell, telling the touching story of two hermit crabs as they embark on a heartwarming journey to find a new home after their original shells get damaged. Explore this vibrant and colourful underwater world where exploration and puzzle solving are central, where the journey will be filled with challenges, but the love and teamwork of Mr. and Mrs. Hermit will prevail. But do note that this is a single-player game with two characters rather than a co-op title. Puzzles here look to be in the classic point-and-click adventure game style of finding key items and then interacting with characters and objects, but the appeal to me is the art and animations. The underwater world is stunningly brought to life with a hand-drawn art style, with the expressive characters really making the game visually captivating. So if you love a cozy experience, be sure to wishlist this game. I have a soft spot for Necromancer games since that is my favourite class from Diablo 2, so I'll at least give them a look, with a promising entry being Skull Horde, a game which describes itself as an auto-battler, but I don't think it counts, where yes, units automatically attack, but you are leading them around the dungeon like in an RTS, so action strategy roguelite in my opinion. You play as a disembodied flying skull of a necromancer, commanding an army of skeletal minions on their quest to conquer procedurally generated dungeons, having, of course, some sick pixel art, which was why I was interested in the first place. There is some horde survival element here with the number of enemies, but you have a comparable number of units in your own army as well, leading to epic clashes that look awesome. Of course, there will be a variety of units, a merge system to combine units into stronger forms, as well as special abilities and perks to unlock in that roguelite way, and looks great. An upcoming single-player action-adventure game is The Lonesome Guild, which combines heartfelt storytelling with engaging gameplay. Set in a world consumed by loneliness, it tells the tale of a spirit who awakens without memories, having to recruit a ragtag group of heroes, with the power of friendship being a central theme here. The gameplay focuses heavily on exploration and puzzle solving as you discover hidden areas and interact with the environment in unique ways, which is combined with real-time action which looks fun, where the friendship bond between party members is not just for fun, but results in new abilities and combos being made available. As you take on quests together and chat by the campfire, the bonds between characters will get stronger, with there being 6 playable characters, but it looks like you will only be able to have 3 in your party at any one time. Visually, this game looks great and does have some interesting enemy designs as well, like the vehicle-based one shown in the trailer, and will be of interest to 2D Zelda fans. The sequel to a popular title from 2023 was also announced, where World 2 is a mining defense roguelite that is looking to build upon elements of the original. The core of this revolves around scaling a vertical wall on your robo spider tank, stopping to dig into the wall in the mining portion to gather resources for upgrades, but need to occasionally scramble back to your vehicle to shoot at waves of enemies. However, this sequel expands upon that by allowing you to pilot the entire Robo Spider into the wall, now adding enemies inside the wall with a variety of upgrade options for both your exosuit and the vehicle, also retaining the pixel art style and looks absolutely fantastic. They have done it again. Developer Chibig is known for their cozy titles, with their previous game, Mika and the Witch's Mountain, being a huge Kickstarter success to the tune of more than €1 million, and their follow-up, Elusive, is currently sitting at $300,000 and counting. This is a cozy-looking, exploration-focused 3D platformer, where the world and environment appears to be some sort of parallel to our real world, but in which the playable character is tiny in comparison, which means that animals like the house cat then becomes a massive threat. The game describes itself as combining exploration with resource and treasure gathering, crafting, quests, platforming, and even combat, having some Metroidvania elements since the different areas are interconnected and you can get traversal ability gadgets and tools like a grappling hook, boots, or moth dust, which allows you to dash, which is in addition to platforming abilities like wall jumping, seamlessly blending 2D and 3D and looks great. There are other such tiny characters to locate in the world, with a home base hideout which you can return to rest and relax, but can also be upgraded, drawing upon It Takes Two and The Plucky Squire in terms of game inspirations, and the Studio Ghibli film The Secret World of Arrietty. In terms of story, the house is supposed to be haunted, and others of your kind have vanished after making their way up to the attic of the witch, with talk of a dark curse befalling the house as well, so it will be up to you to unravel the mystery, but definitely leans more on the cozy end of things. I'm not quite sure what this game is, but one look at it in motion and you might be able to see why I'm interested, since All Systems Dance is a vibrant and unique action-adventure dancing rhythm game set in a dystopian world dominated by corporate greed and consumerism. Dance becomes the weapon of choice to fight against the oppressive forces that control society, and you become part of the Movement, a group of rebels who use the power of dance to free citizens from the mind control imposed by the corporations. Even the basic movement in this game is achieved via dancing, which also extends to the combat against robots as you build up hype points with a fantastic visual style as well, and feels very indie games. I meant to release this video earlier in the week, but things happened, so by the time this comes out, the Kickstarter campaign for Dawn Apart would have concluded, raising a modest 31,000 euros, where I've had my eye on this game for quite a while before that, and it has good momentum on Steam. This is a colony sim plus factory builder, in which you lead a colony of fortune hunters as they seek riches on a mysterious, fully destructible voxel planet. You are doing factory building stuff like building structures and automating the mining, while having to defend against hostile creatures and environmental hazards, expanding your factory and moving up the tech tree as you do so. However, rather than being a single superhuman character like in Factorio, you have an entire colony of people to take care of, having to build shelters and to have sufficient food and medicine for them, as well as all newcomers, adding a spin on the familiar genre, which should be interesting. There is also physics in this game, where you can build vertically, yes, but one explosion too many will cause entire sections of that to collapse, looking pretty sick as well, and should be a huge hit. I was not expecting the announcement of a new Styx game, so I had to give this a mention, even if it is from quite a large studio, where the original from 2014 and its sequel in 2017 were very well received third-person stealth action titles, with Styx Blades of Greed looking to continue that legacy. You play as a cunning goblin whose primary skills are stealth, agility, and sharp wit, on a mission to steal as much quartz as you can, the most precious and dangerous resource in the world. This fantasy world is on the brink of a major conflict between human, elves, and orcs, where the sneaky goblin, of course, takes this opportunity to turn it to his advantage. Gameplay revolves around stealth mechanics, allowing you to sneak past enemies, avoid traps, and utilize the environment to your advantage, with special abilities like cloning, invisibility, mind control, and time shift as well. However, it is not just passive sneaking around, since you can engage enemies in combat, sneaking up and then plunging a dagger into their throats, for example. And while this is a cinematic trailer only, it should have fancy new modern graphics, and since stealth games are difficult to come by, this might be of interest. One of my favorite indie games is Islanders from 2019, a small, cheap game that I wasn't expecting that much out of, but boy, did it prove me wrong. Where this minimalist city builder title was so pleasant and soothing, in which you score points by placing synergistic buildings closer to each other and resources, having one of the most pleasant low poly art styles, and we have a new entry here in Islanders New Shores, but with a caveat. You see, the original developers, Grizzly Games, went on to make Thronefall, with one of the developers, Jonas Tyroler, also releasing solo games and has a successful YouTube channel, but somewhere in that time, they sold the IP to Thunderful in 2022, who are making this with their internal team The Station, who did also make Steam World Build. This sequel looks very similar in concept but has jazzed up the visuals and looks awesome, but does introduce new features and mechanics as well. The key one being boons, which are single-use power-ups to give you an advantage as you progress. There are over 44 different building types across 6 biomes, with each biome having 4 different color variations, also adding a photo mode, new music and more, where if the original is anything to go by, this should be excellent as well. Sick of everything being a roguelite? Try on this Match 3 survival horror comedy RPG Metroidvania for size in creepy redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3, where 1 and 2 don't exist, and of course, to match this kind of weird, it comes to us from developer Strange Scaffold, makers of I Am Your Beast, El Paso Elsewhere, Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, Click Coding, Sunshine Shuffle and many more. I love Match 3 games, so the core gameplay here is of interest to me, where we have not had a decent one of these since Puzzle Quest, so something like this looks great, with interesting weird enemies, including zombie dinosaurs. I'm not really sure how the Metroidvania elements fit into this, but whatever, I'm all in on this, with a 2025 release window as well, so I'm just waiting for a date. The name in the puzzle game space is Zachtronics, makers of a number of notable titles like Exapunks, Space Camp and Opus Magnum, so when they announced that the studio was shutting down in 2022, a lot of people were disappointed, but some of the team members, including Zachtronics founder Zach Barth, reformed under a new banner in coincidence, giving themselves more scope to explore their ideas rather than just being limited to video games, making card games, educational games and more, but they are back with Kaizen, a Factory Story. This is an open-ended puzzle automation game with what looks like some programming aspect set in 1980s Japan, where you are designing automated production lines to manufacture iconic products from that era, such as calculators, camcorders, and arcade machines. Kaizen means the process of continual improvement, so you are constantly tweaking your process, balancing various factors, including resource allocation, machinery setup, and workflow optimization, which doesn't sound fun, but if you're a puzzle game fan, trust me on this one. A bunch of amazing action-adventure titles popped out of the woodwork after I made my video on upcoming games in this genre, which is a good thing in the grand scheme of things, so I'm here to show them off to you, with Town of Zoz looking amazing as well. This is an action RPG that blends cooking, farming and exploration within a vibrant fantasy world, starting off in a village deeply connected to its ancient magical traditions, where you play as a young shaman chef, reluctantly returning to his family's farm and restaurant upon his parents' request. However, he then realizes that the village hides an ancient secret and must do his part to lift the dark cloud hanging over the village, using his cooking, farming and fighting skills in order to do so. Yes, this is Cuisinier-like in nature, but less of a roguelite, where you venture out to hunt magical creatures to gather ingredients combined with farmed ingredients so that you can make delicious looking food. Giving food to the villagers strengthens your bond with them, having a variety of NPCs to befriend as well, with the animation here having what seems like fewer frames of animation than we are used to in modern games, which gives it a cool vibe. But cooking, like fishing, is another favourite aspect of mine in games, so this is of interest. We only have a cinematic trailer here for Mecharashi, but this cites Front Mission as an inspiration, being a mecha turn-based tactics title that does look pretty sick, at least in terms of screenshots, so if you love giant robots, this will be of note, and thus join a growing list of such mecha tactics titles, but hey, I say the more the better, since this looks awesome. Alright, this is technically not an indie game, but it does come to us from the French developer that made Streets of Rage 4, who have once again partnered with Sega to use one of their legendary IP in Shinobi Art of Vengeance, a straight up to the action platformer, which is not a Metroidvania, looking absolutely sick visually, which is to be expected given SOR 4, so next to Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, Ninja games sure are making a resurgence right now. Watch this video for the best ninja indie games.
A part of the whole. This is the mastery of a shinobi.